Need a few minutes to reset? Great Minds is a podcast from SBS that guides you through different meditation styles from around the world. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
In this bulletin, warnings about the new directive from the Immigration Minister, a further 28 people dead in the war in Gaza, and in tennis, Carlos Alcaraz will play Alexander Zverev in the French Open men's singles final. With the latest from the SBS newsroom, I'm Sunil Abosti. One of the country's main refugee advocacy groups is warning the new directive from the Immigration Minister could cause refugees unimaginable harm. Immigration Minister Andrew Giles yesterday replaced the controversial Direction 99 with a new direction known as Direction 110. This means from the 21st of June onwards, more weight will be given to community safety in determining decisions by tribunals on visa cancellations. It comes in response to several high-profile criminal cases involving people who Direction 99 allowed to stay in Australia that has put pressure on the government. But the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre says Direction 110 is a knee-jerk response and a senseless decision. It says it causes a risk of families being separated and refugees being sent back to persecution. Several rivers in and around Sydney are still threatening to flood, despite heavy rain easing. The deluge of the last few days has caused the dam that supplies most of Sydney's drinking water, Warragamba Dam, to spill. This poses flood threats downstream for places like the Nepean River in Sydney's west and the Hawkesbury River north of the city. Minor flooding in Sackville North in northwestern Sydney has prompted the State Emergency Service to direct some people there to evacuate or risk being trapped without power and other essential services. The trough that has caused all the recent rain is heading south today, but although it may cause showers in Victoria's east, the area is unlikely to face the brunt of the rain system. At least 28 more Palestinians have been killed in Gaza, with tanks advancing to the edge of Rafah. The dead include 8 after an airstrike on Khan Yunis, just north of Rafah, and 3 in another strike on a school building in Gaza City that was being used as a shelter. It comes as United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has put Israel on a global list of offenders who have committed violations against children. It includes killing, maiming and denying aid access, although no specific allegations have been made against Israel. But Israel's envoy to the UN, Gilad Erdan, says the designation brings shame to the UN, not Israel.
I am utterly shocked and disgusted by this shameful decision of the Secretary General. Israel's army is the most moral army in the world. So this immoral decision will only aid the terrorists and reward Hamas. And I have to tell you another thing. The only one who is blacklisted today is the Secretary General.
The United Nations World Food Programme says the threat of famine is again looming in Sudan due to the war in the country. The programme is expanding its emergency assistance in Sudan, saying it is now trying to reach 5 million people there by the end of the year, which is double the amount of people it was trying to reach at the start of the year. Michael Dunford, the programme's regional director for East Africa, says the situation is historically bad.
We've got record levels of malnutrition, record levels of hunger, and on a daily basis the situation is getting worse. The most recent figures that we have suggested that there were 18 million people acutely food insecure, but those figures date from December. We're going to have new figures coming out in the next week, 10 days, and the likelihood is we will see a substantial increase in the number of people who are suffering as a result of this conflict.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says he's ready for peace talks to end the conflict in Ukraine, but only if he can get agreements that are in Russia's interests. Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022 and Russian forces have been making advances in eastern Ukraine in recent months. Russia is a nuclear power, but Mr. Putin says there will be no need to use atomic weapons to win the war in Ukraine. Amidst renewed emphasis from Western countries on sending weapons to Ukraine to help them fight Russia, Mr. Putin says he reserves the right to supply long-range weapons to countries who are under pressure from the West. In tennis, Spaniard Carlos Alcaraz will play German Alexander Zverev in the French Open men's singles final. Alcaraz has beaten the man who will become world number 1 next week, Italian Yannick Sinner, 26-6-3, 3-6, 6-4, 6-3 in his semi-final. Alcaraz, who won Wimbledon last year and the US Open in 2022, says he likes his burgeoning rivalry with Sinner.
I hope to play many more matches like this one against Gianni, but yes, one of the toughest matches that I've played for sure.
Zverev has beaten Norwegian Casper Ruud 2-6, 6-2, 6-4, 6-2 in his semi-final. I'm Sunil Awasti. That's the latest from the SBS newsroom.
Why do people want to be at work? To feel heard, appreciated, part of something, and to know there's a career path for everyone. Inclusive workplaces are linked to increased innovation, productivity, and employee satisfaction. Make your organisation a place where people want to be. For inclusion and diversity training, visit inclusion-program.com.au.